Laura sat behind the wheel of her bright blue sedan, her heart racing with excitement. The sun streamed through the windshield, casting a warm glow on her face as she hummed along to the latest pop hits playing on the radio. Today was a big day. It marked not only her promotion at work, but also a celebration with her boyfriend, Alex. They had been planning this evening for weeks, eagerly anticipating the moment when they would toast to her success and their bright future together. As she drove through the bustling streets of downtown, Laura couldn't help but smile at the thought of the dinner they had reserved at the chic new restaurant. She envisioned the candlelit table, the laughter they would share, and the way Alex would look at her with pride. Her mind was filled with dreams and aspirations, all of which seemed to lie ahead like an open road. However, in an instant, everything changed. Laura's dreamlike state shattered as a car barreled toward her from the opposite direction, tires screeching against the asphalt. She barely had time to react. The world around her exploded into chaos as the other vehicle collided with hers with a deafening crash. Metal crunched, glass shattered, and for a fleeting moment, there was nothing but darkness. When Laura finally regained consciousness, she was met with the sterile scent of antiseptic and the beeping of machines. Confusion enveloped her mind as she struggled to piece together what had happened. Blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights above, she turned her head slowly, taking in the white walls of the hospital room. Panic surged through her as she noticed the 4-drip hanging beside her bed and the bandages wrapped around her body. "Laura?" A gentle voice broke through the haze. She turned to see a doctor standing at the foot of her bed, his expression serious yet compassionate. "I'm Dr. Reynolds. You've been in an accident. What happened?" Laura croaked, her throat dry. "Where's Alex?" Dr. Reynolds hesitated, his gaze faltering for a moment. "You were in a car accident. You sustained serious injuries." "I'm afraid," he paused, taking a deep breath. "You are paralyzed from the waist down." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating her. Laura's heart raced, her mind reeling. Paralyzed? The concept felt foreign, unreal. No, that can't be true," she stammered, tears pooling in her eyes. "I can't be paralyzed. I have so much to do. I have a life." "Laura, I know this is difficult to process," he said gently, "but we will work with you every step of the way. There's a long road ahead, but with therapy and support, we can help you adapt." "Support?" she echoed bitterly, her voice cracking. "What support? I can't even feel my legs. How could I possibly adapt to this?" Dr. Reynolds looked at her with understanding. "You'll need time to grieve and to adjust. It's a huge change, and it's okay to feel upset. But you are not alone in this. Your family and friends will be here for you." Laura turned her head away, unable to face the reality of her situation. All the dreams she had just moments ago felt like a distant memory. Instead, all she could see was her new life, a life of limitations and uncertainty. The thought was unbearable. Days passed in a blur of hospital visits, physical therapy sessions, and well-meaning relatives. The vibrant life she once led seemed like a dream that had slipped through her fingers. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling as if she were drowning in a sea of despair. Each time the door opened, she braced herself for the familiar faces of her family and friends. Each visit somehow both comforting and suffocating. "Hey, Laura," her mother said one afternoon, entering the room with a bright smile that faded slightly as she saw her daughter's expression. "How are you feeling today?" "I don't know, Mom," Laura replied, her voice flat. "I just want to go home. I want everything to go back to normal." Her mother sat on the edge of the bed, reaching for Laura's hand. "I know it feels overwhelming right now, but you're going to get through this. We're all here for you, and we'll figure it out together." Laura pulled her hand away, frustration bubbling inside her. "You don't understand. Normal is gone. I can't even walk. How can I ever be normal again?" Her mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but she remained steadfast. "You will find a new normal, Laura. It will take time, but you'll discover strength you never knew you had." As the days turned into weeks, Laura was discharged from the hospital, but the world outside felt foreign. Her family rallied around her, creating a makeshift support system that included ramps, adaptive equipment, and a schedule filled with appointments. They were determined to help her, but Laura felt trapped in a life she hadn't chosen. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of therapy, Laura found herself alone in her room, staring out the window at the setting sun. The vibrant colors painted across the sky reminded her of the life she used to have, the adventures, the spontaneity, the freedom of movement. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she felt a wave of hopelessness wash over her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed on the bedside table, breaking her reverie. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from Alex. "Hey babe, I've been thinking about you. Can I come over?" Laura's heart raced. Part of her longed to see him, to feel his presence and hear his voice. But another part felt a growing sense of dread. What would she say? Would he even understand what she was going through? Would he still look at her the same way? After a moment of hesitation, she typed back, "Sure. Come over." When Alex arrived, he walked into the room with an air of concern. "Hey, Laura," he said softly, his eyes scanning her face. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," she replied curtly, avoiding his gaze. "Just tired." He shuffled awkwardly, clearly unsure of how to approach her. "I've missed you. I just wanted to see how you're doing." "I'm doing great," she snapped, the frustration boiling over. "I'm just sitting in a wheelchair and trying to figure out how to be okay with that." Alex's face fell, and he took a step closer. "I can't even imagine what you're going through, but I'm here for you. Whatever you need." "Whatever I need?" Laura echoed, her voice rising. "What could you possibly understand? You weren't the one who was in that car. You weren't the one who—" She cut herself off, tears filling her eyes. "Laura, please," Alex said gently, stepping closer. "I want to help. I want to be here for you." But as she looked into his eyes, Laura felt a familiar pang of doubt. She needed to be strong, to find her own way through this. "You don't get it, do you? I'm not the same person anymore. I don't know if I can be the person you want me to be." "Hey," he said, his voice softening. "You don't have to be anyone but yourself. I just want to support you through this. We can get through it together." "I don't know if I want to," she admitted, her heart racing. "I feel like everything is falling apart, and I don't want to drag you down with me." "Laura, you're not dragging me down," Alex said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I care about you. I want to be there for you." But deep down, Laura felt a growing sense of uncertainty. She needed to find her own strength, to rediscover who she was without relying on anyone else. "I need time, Alex," she said finally, her voice trembling. "I need to figure this out on my own." The tension hung in the air, thick with unspoken words. Alex's expression shifted, a mix of concern and frustration. "I just want to help you." "Maybe you can help by giving me space," Laura replied firmly, her heart heavy. "I can't be the person you want me to be right now." Laura lay in the hospital bed, the sterile scent of antiseptic filling her nostrils. The rhythmic beeping of the machines around her served as a constant reminder of the reality she now faced. It had been several days since the accident, yet the shock had not yet worn off. She blinked at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts of what had been and what could never be again. The doctors had told her she was paralyzed from the waist down, a phrase that echoed in her mind like a haunting melody. When she saw Alex walk through the door, a wave of mixed emotions washed over her. Relief, love, and then a flicker of doubt. He wore a look of concern, but there was something else in his eyes that made her uneasy. "Hey, Laura," he said softly, taking a seat beside her. "How are you feeling?" "I'm okay, I guess," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "It's just a lot to process." Alex reached for her hand, his touch warm and familiar. "You're going to get through this. I'm here for you." "I promise," he said, his voice steady. Yet there was an undercurrent she couldn't ignore. "Thanks, Alex," she said, squeezing his hand. "It means a lot to me." But even as she spoke, a nagging feeling began to settle in her gut. Something wasn't right, and she couldn't put her finger on it. Days passed, and Laura's condition slowly stabilized, but the doubts surrounding Alex intensified. He visited regularly, but there were moments when he seemed distant, his smile not quite as bright. The more time she spent with him, the more she sensed that he was hiding something. It was during one of those days, as she lay in bed scrolling through her phone, that she stumbled upon a series of messages that would shatter her world. It started innocently enough, a notification from her social media app. She'd seen Alex's name tagged in a photo with another woman. At first, she thought nothing of it, but as she tapped on the image, her heart sank. There he was laughing, his arm wrapped around a beautiful stranger. The caption read, "So glad we met. Here's to new adventures." With shaking hands, she clicked through the thread. The messages were casual at first, but quickly turned intimate. Flirting, inside jokes, even plans to meet again. Each new revelation felt like a dagger to her heart. She couldn't breathe. "Alex!" she shouted, her voice echoing in the small room. He rushed in, concern etched on his face. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "Am I okay?" she repeated, her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. "What the hell is this?" She thrust her phone towards him, her eyes blazing with fury. As he read the messages, his expression shifted from confusion to guilt. "Laura, don't you dare. You were supposed to be here for me," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm fighting for my life, and I made a mistake," he interrupted, his voice strained. "It was a moment of weakness. I thought you wouldn't need me anymore." "Thought I wouldn't need you?" Laura couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You think I needed you to go out and cheat on me? I needed you to be here, to support me. Instead, you were having fun with someone else while I was in this bed." "I'm so sorry, Laura," he said, desperation creeping into his tone. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was stupid." "Stupid? Is that all you have to say?" She felt rage boiling within her, mixing with the pain that had already consumed her. "You're not the person I thought you were. You're just a coward." "Laura, please," he pleaded, stepping closer. "I love you. I never stopped loving you." "Love? Is that what you call it? You think love gives you a free pass to betray someone when they're at their most vulnerable?" She shook her head, disgusted. "You're not the man I fell in love with. You're just a stranger to me now." In that moment, Laura realized she had a choice to make. She could either let his betrayal define her or find the strength within herself to move forward without him. "I don't need you," she said firmly, her voice steady. "I'm going to get through this on my own. I deserve better." Alex opened his mouth to protest, but she held up a hand to silence him. "You may think you can come back from this, but I'm done. I won't let your betrayal hold me back. I'm going to fight for my life, and I don't need you to do that." With those words, she felt a surge of empowerment wash over her. She had been through hell, but she was still here, still fighting. And she would continue to do so, with or without Alex. As he turned to leave, his shoulders slumped. Laura felt a strange sense of relief. She had faced the truth, no matter how painful it was. The road ahead would be long and arduous, but she was more determined than ever. With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath and wiped her tears away. She would find her own way to heal, and she would do it for herself. Laura returned home after weeks in the hospital, feeling a mix of anxiety and hope. The familiar sights of her neighborhood brought back memories of a life that seemed so distant now. As she entered her house, the warmth and love of her family enveloped her. Her mother, Sarah, rushed to hug her tightly, tears of relief streaming down Su Rosto. "Oh, Laura, I can't believe you're finally home," Sarah exclaimed, her voice trembling with emotion. "We've missed you so much." "I missed you too, Mom," Laura replied, trying to smile through the heaviness in her heart. She could feel the weight of her new reality settling in, but the presence of her family was a comforting balm. Her father, Tom, stood by the doorway, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "Welcome back, sweetheart," he said, his voice steady. "You've shown so much strength. We're here for you, every step of the way." "Thank you, Dad," Laura murmured, her eyes glistening. She knew she would need their support more than ever. The homecoming was bittersweet. As Laura settled into her old room, she was struck by how everything was the same yet so different. The posters on the walls, the familiar scent of her favorite candles, All of it felt like a ghost of her former self. She sat on her bed, her heart aching as she thought about the life she once had. A life filled with dreams, laughter, and the love of Alex, now overshadowed by betrayal and loss. That evening, her family gathered around the dinner table, an array of her favorite dishes laid out before her. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and stories, but Laura felt like a spectator in her own life. As her brother, Jake, regaled them with tales from school, she found herself lost in thought. "Laura, are you okay?" Jake asked, noticing her distant gaze. His concern was evident, and it pierced through her fog of sadness. "Yeah, I'm just thinking," she replied, forcing a smile. "It's just a lot to take in." "Take your time," Sarah said gently, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "We're here whenever you're ready to talk or share anything." After dinner, Laura retreated to her room, seeking solace in the quiet. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her photos, trying to find comfort in memories of happier days. She paused on a picture of her and Alex at the beach, their faces radiant with joy. A pang of sadness gripped her heart as she remembered how things had changed. The next morning, Sarah knocked softly on Laura's door. "Honey, how about we start your day with some fresh air? I thought we could go for a walk in the park." Laura hesitated, but then nodded. "Okay, that sounds nice." As they walked through the park, the vibrant colors of autumn surrounded them. The leaves crunched underfoot, and the crisp air felt refreshing against Laura's skin. Despite the beauty of the day, a heaviness lingered in her chest. "Mom, do you think I'll ever be able to walk again?" Laura asked suddenly, her voice quiet. Sarah took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "I believe you will, sweetheart. It's going to take time and hard work, but I know you have the strength within you. Just remember, it's okay to have doubts and fears. You're not alone in this." Laura nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. "I just don't want to be a burden to anyone." "You could never be a burden," Sarah replied firmly. "We love you, and we're here to help you through this. You're our daughter, and we will support you no matter what." Back at home, Laura felt the urge to do something productive. While scrolling through social media, she stumbled upon an inspiring video of a woman who had overcome a similar situation. The woman spoke about her struggles, her determination, and how she reclaimed her life after adversity. Laura felt a stirring of inspiration as she watched. "Mom, come check this out." Laura called, her voice tinged with excitement. Sarah hurried into the room, intrigued. "What is it, dear?" she asked, leaning over Laura's shoulder to see the screen. "This woman. She was in a terrible accident too, and look how far she's come. It's amazing." Laura's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "If she can do it, maybe I can too." Sarah smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "Absolutely, honey. You have that same strength in you. You just need to believe it." Determined to take charge of her recovery, Laura began to set small goals. Each day, she would focus on one thing she wanted to achieve, whether it was moving her legs a little more or sitting up for longer periods. With the support of her family, she felt empowered to face the challenges that lay ahead. "Let's make a plan," Tom suggested one evening. "We can create a schedule that includes exercises, therapy, and even some fun activities to keep your spirits up." Laura felt a surge of gratitude for her father's initiative. "That would be great, Dad. I think having a routine would help me feel more in control." As they sat together, mapping out her daily schedule, Laura felt a sense of purpose beginning to take root. She realized that while her body was changing, her spirit didn't have to be diminished. With each passing day, she began to understand that her journey wasn't just about physical recovery. It was also about rediscovering herself. Weeks passed, and while Laura faced countless struggles, her family remained steadfast by her side. They celebrated her small victories, whether it was a slight movement in her toes or being able to sit up on her own. One evening, as they gathered in the living room, Jake looked at Laura with a smile. "Hey, I have an idea. Let's have a family game night. It'll be fun, and we can all play together." "That sounds perfect," Sarah chimed in, clapping her hands together. "Let's make a special night out of it." Laura's heart warmed at the thought of laughter filling the house again. "I'd love that," she replied, feeling a sense of belonging wash over her. As the night unfolded, with laughter echoing around the room, Laura found herself enjoying the moment. Even amidst her struggles, the love of her family was a powerful reminder that she was not alone. Each shared joke, each playful tease, helped to lift the weight of her worries. If a pain is poor, a memento. In the quiet moments that followed, as Laura prepared for bed, she reflected on her day. Laura took a deep breath as she entered the rehabilitation center for the first time. The sterile smell of antiseptic hung in the air, mingling with the faint scent of sweat from the patients working hard to regain their mobility. She felt a wave of fear wash over her, but she quickly pushed it aside. This was the beginning of her journey to reclaim her life, and she was determined to face it head-on. The physical therapist, a warm woman named Sarah, greeted her with a reassuring smile. "Welcome, Laura. I know this can be overwhelming, but we're here to help you every step of the way. Let's get started, shall we?" Laura nodded, her heart racing. She wheeled herself over to the therapy area, where several other patients were already working on various exercises. As she settled into her routine, she couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie with the others. Each face told a story of pain and resilience, and for the first time since the accident, she felt a flicker of hope. During her first session, Laura struggled to move her legs, the muscles feeling foreign and unresponsive. With each attempt, frustration mounted, but Sarah's encouraging voice cut through her despair. "You're doing great, Laura. Every little effort counts. Just keep pushing yourself." "I feel like I'm stuck," Laura admitted, her voice tinged with a mix of anger and sadness. "I don't know if I can do this." Sarah knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay to feel that way. You've been through a tremendous ordeal. But remember, progress takes time. Focus on the small victories. They'll add up." Laura took a deep breath and nodded, though doubt still lingered in her mind. After her session, she retreated to her room, feeling both physically exhausted and mentally drained. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts spiraling back to Alex and the betrayal that had cut deeper than any physical injury. The following days at the rehab center became a blur of exercises and therapy sessions. It was in one of these sessions that she met Miguel, a former athlete who had faced his own battles with injury. Miguel was charismatic and full of energy, and his presence seemed to light up the room. "Hey, you're Laura, right?" he said, flashing her a warm smile as he approached. "I've seen you around. Don't worry, you'll find your groove soon. I was in your shoes once." Laura looked at him, curiosity piqued. "What happened to you?" Miguel chuckled lightly, his eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. "A little thing called a sports accident. I can tell you, it was rough at first, but I learned that resilience is key. We can't let this define us." His words resonated with her, and over the next few weeks, they became fast friends. Miguel pushed her to work harder, encouraging her to embrace each painful moment as a step toward recovery. "You've got this, Laura. Just think of it as a challenge. The more you fight, the stronger you'll become." One afternoon, as they both sat in the therapy room, Miguel shared a story from his past. "I remember the day I finally stood up again after my accident. It was terrifying but exhilarating. When I did it, I felt like I had conquered the world. You'll have that moment too, I promise." Laura's eyes widened with determination. "I want that moment. I want to feel strong again." With Miguel's support, Laura began to believe in herself. They started a support group for other patients at the center, a safe space where they could share their struggles and triumphs. The group quickly grew, and the atmosphere was charged with hope and encouragement. One day, as they gathered for their meeting, Laura felt a surge of confidence. "I was thinking," she began, her voice steady, "that we should all share our stories. I know it's hard, but maybe talking about our struggles can help us heal." The room fell silent, and she could see the uncertainty in the eyes of her peers. But then, one by one, they began to speak. Stories of loss, pain, and perseverance filled the space, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences. With each story, Laura felt her own burdens lighten, and she realized the power of community. As the weeks passed, she noticed changes within herself. The frustration of physical therapy began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of purpose. Each small victory, lifting her legs a little higher, rolling over in bed without assistance, became a reason to celebrate. One day, after a particularly grueling session, Laura surprised herself by managing to stand for a few seconds with minimal support. She couldn't contain her excitement. "Did you see that?" she exclaimed, her eyes shining with triumph. Miguel grinned widely, his pride evident. "I told you, you're getting stronger every day. This is just the beginning." Feeling invigorated, Laura decided to capture her journey in a journal. She poured her heart onto the pages, documenting her struggles, victories, and the lessons learned along the way. Writing became her therapy, a way to process her emotions and reflect on her growth. At night, as she lay in bed, she often read her entries aloud to Miguel during their late-night talks. "It's like I'm discovering a new side of myself," she shared one evening, her voice filled with wonder. "I'm not just a girl in a wheelchair. I'm someone who's fighting to reclaim her life." Miguel nodded in agreement. "Exactly. You're more than your circumstances. You're a warrior, Laura. And warriors aren't defined by their battles, but by how they rise after falling." With Miguel's friendship and the support of her growing community, Laura began to heal in more ways than she ever imagined. She found strength not only in her body, but in her spirit. Every setback became a stepping stone, and with each step forward, she was one step closer to the life she envisioned for herself. As the days turned into weeks, Laura became a beacon of hope for those around her. She inspired others to share their stories, and together, they forged a bond that transcended their individual struggles. The Rehabilitation Center transformed into a sanctuary of healing, where laughter mixed with tears and triumphs were celebrated like victories in a grand battle. One afternoon, as they gathered for another support meeting, Laura looked around at the faces of her friends, each one a testament to resilience. "I just want to say how grateful I am for all of you," she began, her voice steady. "We're all fighting our own battles, but together, we're unstoppable." A wave of applause erupted, and she couldn't help but smile, feeling the warmth of their camaraderie envelop her. As days turned into weeks, Laura found herself grappling with a new reality. In the aftermath of her accident, the once vibrant young woman was now confined to a wheelchair, her dreams seemingly shattered. Yet, within her, a flicker of determination began to ignite. It was during this time that she stumbled upon a local community project aimed at helping people with disabilities find employment. The idea resonated deeply within her, awakening a sense of purpose that had been dormant since the accident. One sunny morning, Laura wheeled herself to the community center where the project was based. The building was bright and welcoming, with colorful posters adorning the walls, each one a testament to the resilience of individuals who had faced similar challenges. As she entered the room, she was greeted by a group of enthusiastic volunteers, all eager to make a difference. Among them was Sarah, a charismatic woman in her 30s who immediately approached Laura with a warm smile. "Hey there. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here," Sarah said, her eyes sparkling with kindness. "We could really use someone with your perspective on our team." Laura felt a rush of warmth at the invitation. "Thank you. I'm excited to help in any way I can." As the days passed, Laura became increasingly involved in the project. She attended meetings, brainstormed ideas, and even shared her story with the group. Each time she spoke, she felt a growing confidence, as if the pieces of her fractured identity were slowly coming together. One afternoon, while discussing potential outreach strategies, Laura suggested, "What if we organized a workshop where people could come and learn how to navigate job interviews? We could share our experiences and help them prepare." The room fell silent for a moment, and then Sarah exclaimed, "That's brilliant, Laura. We can certainly make that happen." Thrilled by the positive response, Laura dove headfirst into the planning. She spent late nights researching interview tips and crafting resources for the participants. The more she worked on the project, the more she realized that her own experiences, her struggles, her pain, could actually empower others. She began to see her journey not just as a series of unfortunate events, but as a source of strength. One day, after a particularly productive meeting, Laura and Sarah sat down to discuss the next steps. As they shared ideas, Sarah leaned back in her chair and looked at Laura thoughtfully. "You know, Laura, I think you have an incredible story. Have you ever thought about sharing it more broadly?" People need to hear what you've been through. Laura hesitated, her heart racing at the thought. I've thought about it, but what if they don't care? What if it doesn't inspire anyone? Every story matters, Sarah reassured her. You never know who might be listening. Your journey could give someone the hope they need. Laura pondered Sarah's words for days. She understood the weight of her experiences, but the idea of standing before an audience, bearing her soul, filled her with anxiety. Finally, after much contemplation, she decided to take the plunge. If her story could help even one person, it would be worth it. The day of the workshop arrived, and the community center was buzzing with energy. Attendees filled the seats, eager to learn and share their own experiences. As Laura took the stage, her palms were sweaty and her heart raced. She looked out at the sea of faces, each one holding its own story of struggle and triumph. Hi, everyone, she began, her voice trembling slightly. My name is Laura, and I'm here to share my journey with you. Just over a year ago, I was in a car accident that changed my life forever. I became paralyzed from the waist down. As she spoke, recounting the pain of her accident, the betrayal of Alex, and her gradual journey towards healing, she noticed the audience leaning in. Their eyes were fixed on her, their expressions a mix of empathy and understanding. With every word, she felt her confidence swell. She was no longer just a victim of circumstance. She was a survivor, a warrior. By the time Laura finished her story, she was met with a thunderous applause. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the impact of her words. After the workshop, attendees approached her, sharing their own stories and expressing gratitude for her vulnerability. In that moment, Laura understood the power of connection and the importance of community. Thank you for sharing your story, Laura, one woman said, her voice shaky with emotion. You've inspired me to keep fighting and believe in myself again. Laura smiled warmly, her heart swelling with pride. You're not alone. We're all in this together. As weeks turned into months, Laura continued to thrive within the community project. Each workshop she led reinforced her sense of purpose. She began to see her pain as a bridge rather than a barrier. The more she helped others, the more she healed herself. The project became a sanctuary where she could pour her energy into something meaningful, transforming her struggles into a wellspring of hope for those around her. One afternoon, as she was wrapping up a session, Miguel walked in, his presence immediately lighting up the room. Hey, superstar. I heard about your amazing workshop today, he said, beaming with pride. Thanks, Miguel. It was incredible. I can't believe how much I've grown since starting this project, Laura replied, her eyes shining with excitement. You're not just growing, you're thriving, Miguel exclaimed. I've seen the way you inspire everyone. It's like you've become a beacon of hope. Laura felt a warmth in her chest at his compliment. I just want to help others like I wish someone had helped me. As they chatted, Laura realized how far she had come. The darkness that had once enveloped her was lifting, replaced by a newfound sense of self-worth. She was no longer defined by her accident or the betrayal of Alex. She was Laura, a strong, resilient woman dedicated to making a difference. In the months that followed, Laura's dedication to the project deepened. She organized more workshops, developed partnerships with local businesses, and even began mentoring individuals one-on-one, helping them navigate job applications and interviews. Her efforts did not go unnoticed. The community began to recognize her as a leader, and her story spread, inspiring others beyond her immediate circle. Each day brought new challenges and victories, but with the support of her friends, family, and newfound community, Laura felt equipped to face anything. She had transformed her pain into purpose and discovered that true strength lies not in the absence of struggle, but in the ability to rise above it. Laura lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, lost in a whirlwind of thoughts that never seemed to quiet down. It was one of those nights when the darkness felt heavier than usual, pressing down on her chest and making it hard to breathe. The room was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, a constant reminder that time was passing, yet she felt stuck in a moment she desperately wished to escape. Why can't I just be normal again? She whispered to herself, her voice barely audible against the stillness. Tears pooled in her eyes, threatening to spill over as she turned her head away from the ceiling. The memories of her accident replayed like a relentless loop in her mind. The impact, the chaos, the fear. And now, the reality of being paralyzed from the waist down felt like a prison sentence. As the night deepened, her thoughts turned darker. She couldn't shake the feeling that she would never be the same. The vibrant, ambitious young woman who had dreams of climbing the corporate ladder and living life to its fullest was now reduced to someone who struggled with even the simplest tasks. The fear of being a burden to her family and friends gnawed at her. Would they still see her as the same Laura they loved? Or would they see her as helpless? In the midst of her turmoil, a soft knock on her door broke the silence. Laura? It was her mother, the ever-constant source of love and support. "Can I come in?" "Yeah, Mom." "Sure," Laura replied, trying to summon a smile but feeling it falter. Her mother entered, a warm light in the dim room. She took a seat at the edge of Laura's bed, concern etched on her face. "I brought you some tea. I thought it might help you relax." "Thanks," Laura said, accepting the mug. The warmth seeped into her hands, a small comfort amidst the coldness of her thoughts. I don't know how to feel anymore." Her mother nodded, understanding. "It's okay to feel lost. You've been through so much. But you're not alone in this, Laura. We're all here for you." "I know, but," Laura hesitated, searching for the right words. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just a shell of who I used to be. I don't know if I can ever feel whole again." Her mother reached out, placing a hand on Laura's knee. "You are still you, sweetheart. This is just a part of your journey. It's okay to grieve the life you had, but don't forget to look for the new opportunities that lie ahead." Laura took a deep breath, trying to absorb her mother's words, but the heaviness in her chest remained. It's hard to see the bright side when everything feels so dark. What if I never get better? What if this is it? "You will get better, I promise. You have so much strength within you. It's okay to have doubts, but don't let them define you," her mother replied, her voice steady and reassuring. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions. I don't even recognize myself anymore," Laura admitted, a tear slipping down her cheek. Her mother gently wiped it away with her thumb. "You're allowed to feel that way. But remember, even in the midst of darkness, there's a flicker of light waiting to guide you. You just have to be willing to seek it out." After her mother left, Laura picked up a pen and a notebook that had been sitting on her bedside table. She opened it to a blank page, staring at the untouched paper. Maybe it was time to start expressing her thoughts instead of letting them swirl endlessly in her mind. She took a deep breath and began to write, "I feel lost and afraid. I worry that I'll never be the same. I miss my old life, my independence. I hate needing help, but I want to find strength to rise above this. I want to believe in myself again." As the words flowed from her pen, she felt a small sense of relief. It was as if each stroke of ink was a weight lifted off her shoulders. She paused, contemplating her next line, when suddenly, a thought struck her. What if I could help others who feel lost too? The idea was like a spark in the darkness. What if she channeled her pain into something meaningful? She recalled the support group she had attended at the rehabilitation center, where people shared their stories of struggle and triumph. Perhaps she could do something similar, but with a focus on empowerment and resilience. The next day, Laura met with Miguel, her friend from the rehabilitation center, during one of her physiotherapy sessions. She had shared with him her idea of starting a support group, and his eyes lit up with excitement. "That's brilliant, Laura. Enjoying the video? Subscribe to our channel to receive more interesting content. Click the subscribe button and stay updated with the latest news. You have such an inspiring story to tell. I think it would really resonate with people," Miguel encouraged, his enthusiasm infectious. "Do you think people would actually want to come?" she asked, still feeling a twinge of doubt. "Absolutely. You're not alone in this. There are so many people out there who need to hear your voice. Your experience matters," Miguel assured her. "But what if I'm not strong enough to lead something like that?" Laura's voice trembled slightly, the uncertainty creeping back in. "Strength comes in many forms, Laura. It's not just about physical ability. Sometimes, it's about vulnerability, sharing your story, and connecting with others. That's where true strength lies, Miguel said, his tone earnest. As they talked, Laura felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. Perhaps this was a way to redirect her pain into something positive. If she could help even one person feel less alone, maybe it would give her purpose, a purpose that had felt so elusive since her accident. After several days of planning, Laura set up the first meeting for her support group. She advertised it at the rehabilitation center and reached out to friends and family, hoping to gather a small group of participants. As the day approached, nerves began to creep in. What if no one showed up? What if she wasn't able to convey her thoughts? What if it was a complete disaster? When the day finally arrived, Laura found herself seated in a small circle of chairs, her heart racing as she waited. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of Miguel's words about strength and vulnerability. This was her chance to connect, to share, and to heal, not just herself, but others too. To her surprise, several people arrived, some familiar faces from the rehabilitation center and a few new ones. As they settled into their seats, Laura felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She wasn't alone in this. They were all there for each other, united by their struggles. "Thank you all for coming," Laura began, her voice steadying as she spoke. "I wanted to create this space for us to share our stories and support one another. We're all on different paths, but I believe we can find strength together." As the group began to share their experiences, Laura listened intently, feeling a profound connection to each story. One by one, they opened up about their fears, their dreams, and their journeys of overcoming obstacles. The vulnerability in the room was palpable, and for the first time in a long while, Laura felt a sense of belonging. "I always thought I had to be strong on my own," one participant said, her voice shaking. "But being here makes me realize that it's okay to lean on others." Laura nodded, her heart swelling with empathy. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. We're all human, and we need each other. As the meeting continued, Laura found herself sharing her own story. The accident, the betrayal, the pain. It felt cathartic to voice her struggles in front of others who understood. And in that moment, she realized that she was not just a victim of her circumstances. She was a survivor, a warrior in her own right. As the meeting wrapped up, the participants exchanged contact information, promising to meet again. Laura felt a lightness in her heart, a sense of purpose that had eluded her for so long. Perhaps this was the flicker of light her mother had mentioned, the beginning of a new journey, not just for her, but for everyone in that room. When she returned home that evening, Laura sat down with her notebook again. With renewed energy, she began to write about the day's events, documenting the connections she had made and the stories she had heard. Each word felt like a step toward healing, a way to reclaim her narrative. Today, I found strength in vulnerability. I realized that sharing my story can help others. I am not alone, and neither are they. Together, we will rise. With each stroke of the pen, Laura felt the weight of her insecurities begin to lift. She was transforming her pain into purpose, and for the first time since the accident, hope flickered brighter than ever. Laura had spent the last few months piecing together her life after the accident. With each passing day, she felt a renewed sense of strength, a determination to embrace the person she was becoming. Yet, the shadow of her past lingered, particularly in the form of Alex. Despite his betrayal, she knew that she needed closure, a final confrontation to untangle the emotions that had become so intertwined with her recovery. One crisp autumn afternoon, Laura sat in her wheelchair outside a small cafe, the leaves swirling around her like a storm of memories. She had chosen this spot deliberately. It was where she and Alex had shared countless cups of coffee and laughter before everything changed. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the scent of cinnamon pastries, but all she could think about was how much she had to say. As she waited, her heart raced. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times, each scenario playing out differently. Would he be apologetic? Defensive? Would he even show up? Just as doubt began to creep in, she spotted him walking towards her, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets, a hesitant expression on his face. "Laura," he said, stopping a few feet away. His voice was a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. Alex, she replied, her tone steady but cold. Thank you for coming. He glanced around, taking in their surroundings, the memories they had shared haunting the air between them. I didn't know if you really wanted to see me. I do, she said, her voice firm. But there are things we need to talk about. Alex nodded, his expression serious. Yeah, I know. I've been thinking about it a lot too. Laura gestured to the empty chair across from her. Please sit. He hesitated for a moment, then complied, sitting down as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. I've missed you, Laura. She looked him straight in the eyes, searching for the sincerity she had once known. You missed me, or the idea of me? Because there's a difference. Alex's gaze dropped to the table, and he sighed heavily. I know I messed up. What I did, it was unforgivable. I don't even have the words to explain why I did it. Then don't try, Laura said sharply. You can't justify cheating on someone who was fighting for her life. I saw the messages on your phone, Alex. I saw everything. His face paled, and he rubbed the back of his neck nervously. I didn't mean for you to find out that way. I was just what? She interrupted, her frustration bubbling to the surface. Trying to live your life while I was in a hospital bed? Trying to pretend that everything was fine? I was scared, Laura. He raised his voice slightly, his own emotions spilling over. I didn't know how to handle what happened to you. It felt like everything was falling apart, and I didn't know how to fix it. Laura leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing. So you thought that cheating would fix it? You thought that finding comfort in someone else would help you cope with your fear? He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The truth hung heavily in the air, palpable and suffocating. They both knew there was no excuse for what he had done. Do you even realize how much your actions hurt me? Laura continued, her voice trembling with emotion. I was lying in that hospital bed, feeling like a shell of the person I used to be, and you were out with someone else. I felt alone, abandoned. I never wanted you to feel that way, Alex said, his voice softening. I thought I was being strong for you, trying to keep my head above water. Being strong for me would have meant being honest. It would have meant being there when I needed you the most, she replied, her heart racing. Instead, you chose to betray me. Silence enveloped them, a thick layer of unspoken words and unhealed wounds. Laura could see the shame etched across Alex's face, but it did little to ease the ache in her heart. I'm sorry, he whispered finally, his voice cracking. I should have been there for you. I should have fought for you. You didn't fight for me, Alex, Laura said, shaking her head. You chose the easy way out. You took the coward's way out. He looked up, desperation in his eyes. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I regret everything. I've spent every day since wishing I could take it back. I don't want your regrets, she said firmly. I want you to understand what you did to me. I want you to feel the weight of your choices. I do, he insisted, leaning forward. I think about it every single day. I think about how I could have been there for you, how I should have been there for you. I've changed, Laura. I'm trying to be a better person. Change doesn't come with apologies, Alex, she replied coolly. It comes with actions. And right now, I don't see any actions that prove you've changed. He sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping. What can I do? How can I make this right? Laura paused, the answer weighing heavily on her heart. You can't make it right, Alex. You can't erase the past, but you can let me go. You can let this be the end of our story. His eyes widened in shock, and for a moment, hope flickered in his gaze. What if I want to try again? What if we can rebuild? Rebuild what? She asked, her voice rising. A relationship built on lies and betrayal? I deserve better than that. I deserve someone who would stand by me, not someone who would run away when things got tough. Alex opened his mouth to protest, but Laura held up her hand. I have fought too hard to reclaim my life to let you back in. You were a part of my past, but I'm building a future for myself now, one that doesn't include you. Laura, please, he began, but she cut him off. No, Alex. I need to be clear. I don't want to be held back by what we had or by the pain you caused. I'm moving forward, and I can't do that if you're still in my life. Tears glistened in his eyes, and for a moment, Laura felt a pang of sympathy. But she quickly reminded herself of the heartache he had caused her. "You need to let me go," she repeated softly, but firmly. She watched as realization dawned on him, and the fight in his posture diminished. "I'm sorry it had to end this way," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Me too," she said, her heart aching for what they had lost but resolute in her decision. "But it's time for both of us to move on. You need to find your own path, and so do I." With that, she turned her wheelchair slightly, as if symbolically distancing herself from him. As she prepared to leave, Alex reached out, his hand brushing against her arm. "Laura," he said, desperation creeping back into his voice. "I hope you find happiness." She looked back at him, her heart heavy but her spirit unyielding. "I will. I'm finally learning to love myself, and that's the most important journey I can take." With that, she wheeled away, feeling the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. It was a moment of closure, a final chapter she had written for herself. Laura had come a long way since the day of the accident. The memories of that fateful moment still haunted her, but she had learned to channel her pain into determination. It was a chilly morning in November when she arrived at the rehabilitation center, her heart racing with a mixture of anxiety and excitement. Each day of physical therapy had been a battle, but today felt different. Today, she was ready to push her limits further than ever before. As she wheeled herself into the therapy room, the familiar scent of antiseptic and the sound of upbeat music greeted her. Her physical therapist, Sarah, was already waiting for her. Sarah was a petite woman with an infectious smile and an endless supply of encouragement. "Good morning, Laura. Are you ready for another day of progress?" she chirped, adjusting her clipboard. "Good morning, Sarah." Laura replied, her voice steady. "I'm ready to give it my all today." "That's the spirit. Let's start with some warm-ups." Sarah guided Laura through a series of stretches, carefully monitoring her movements. As Laura followed along, she felt a spark of energy igniting within her. With each stretch, she could feel her muscles awakening, and it gave her hope. After the warm-up, they moved to the parallel bars. Laura's heart raced as she positioned herself between the bars, gripping them tightly. Sarah stood beside her, a reassuring presence. "Remember, take it slow. Focus on your balance and your breathing." Laura nodded, taking a deep breath. She could feel the weight of her body, the familiar heaviness that came with her paralysis. Yet today, she felt determined to conquer it. "Okay, here I go," she said, her voice resolute. With Sarah's guidance, Laura lifted herself from her wheelchair, using the bars for support. Her legs trembled as she attempted to shift her weight. "You've got this, Laura. Just one step at a time," Sarah encouraged, her hands ready to assist if needed. "Just one step," Laura repeated, her focus narrowing to the task at hand. She took a deep breath and, with a surge of determination, she shifted her weight onto her left leg. The right leg followed, a slight drag, but it moved. "I did it!" she exclaimed, a mix of disbelief and joy flooding her. Yes, you did it." Sarah clapped her hands, her eyes shining with pride. "Now let's take another step." Laura's heart raced, the thrill of accomplishment coursing through her veins. She took another step, this time more confidently. The sensation of movement was exhilarating. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she laughed, tears of joy welling in her eyes. "You're not just doing it, Laura. You're thriving," Sarah said gently, watching her closely. "Let's keep going." With every step, Laura felt a wave of empowerment wash over her. She was no longer just a victim of her circumstances. She was a warrior, reclaiming her life one small victory at a time. The world outside the therapy room faded away, and all that mattered was the rhythm of her movements and the sound of her heartbeat. "Just a few more steps," Sarah encouraged as they reached the end of the bars. "You've already made incredible progress today." "I can't stop now," Laura replied, feeling the thrill of her own persistence. "I want to keep going." With the last ounce of her strength, she took a final step, her foot landing firmly on the ground. "I did it!" she shouted, her voice echoing in the room. It was a simple action, but for Laura, it felt monumental. She had taken not just physical steps, but emotional ones as well. As she returned to her wheelchair, Sarah beamed at her. "You've made amazing progress today, Laura. You should be so proud of yourself." Laura nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "I am, Sarah. I really am. It feels incredible to feel like I'm moving forward again." After her session, Laura wheeled herself outside for some fresh air. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the colorful autumn leaves that fluttered in the wind. It was a beautiful day, and she wanted to savor every moment of it. Just as she settled in, her phone buzzed with a text notification. It was from her mother. "Mom asterisk, we're so proud of you, sweetheart. Can't wait to celebrate your progress tonight. Love you." Red heart, Laura couldn't help but smile. Texting back, she replied, "Thanks, Mom. I had a breakthrough today. Can't wait to see you." As she sat in the sun, basking in the warmth and joy of her small victory, Laura's thoughts drifted to her family. They had been her rock during her recovery, always by her side. The love and support they had given her fueled her determination to keep pushing forward. Later that evening, Laura's family gathered at her house for a small celebration. Her parents had organized a surprise dinner, and the aroma of her favorite dishes wafted through the air. The moment she entered the dining room, her family erupted in cheers. "Surprise!" they shouted, their faces beaming with pride. "Wow, you guys are amazing." Laura laughed, her heart swelling with gratitude. She wheeled herself closer to the table, where decorations and balloons filled the space, creating a festive atmosphere. Her father, a tall man with a warm smile, raised his glass. "To our incredible Laura, you inspire us every day with your strength and determination." "Cheers!" everyone echoed, raising their glasses in unison. As they enjoyed the meal, laughter and stories filled the room. Laura felt a sense of belonging and love that enveloped her like a warm blanket. Each bite of her favorite lasagna tasted even better, knowing the strides she had made that day. "Laura, we want to hear all about your therapy session," her mother said, leaning forward with interest. Laura's eyes sparkled as she recounted her day. "It was amazing, Mom. I took my first steps between the parallel bars." Her family gasped in delight. "That's incredible," her younger brother exclaimed, his eyes wide with admiration. "I can't believe you're walking again." "It wasn't easy, but I felt so strong," Laura said, her voice filled with emotion. "Every step was like a little victory. It was exhilarating." Her parents exchanged proud glances, their hearts swelling with love for their daughter. "You're our hero, Laura," her father said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "We're so proud of you." After dinner, they gathered in the living room to continue the celebration. Laura's mother had prepared a scrapbook filled with photos and mementos from Laura's journey. As they flipped through the pages, memories flooded back, each one a testament to her resilience. "Look at this one," her mother pointed out a picture from Laura's graduation. "You were so determined to make it through that last semester despite everything." "I remember feeling so overwhelmed," Laura said, smiling at the memory. "But I made it. And now look at you," her mother said, wiping away a tear. "You're conquering new challenges every day." As the evening wore on, Laura felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. Surrounded by her loved ones, she realized that every small victory was not just hers alone. It was a shared triumph. Each step she took was a step forward for her family, too. Later that night, as she prepared for bed, Laura reflected on the day's events. She picked up her journal, a newfound companion in her journey, and began to write about her experiences. The ink flowed easily as she chronicled her triumphs, the little victories that had built her strength. "I took my first steps today," she wrote, her heart racing at the memory, "and it felt like I was flying." Closing the journal, Laura smiled to herself. She had come to understand that healing wasn't just about the physical. It was about reclaiming her spirit and finding joy in the journey. She drifted off to sleep with a heart full of hope. Laura stood backstage, her heart pounding with anticipation as she waited for her turn to speak. The soft hum of the crowd echoed through the auditorium, a sea of faces eager to hear her story. She had come a long way from the girl who had once sat in a hospital bed, feeling lost and broken. As she adjusted the microphone, A wave of nerves washed over her. "You've got this," she whispered to herself, recalling the countless hours spent in physiotherapy, the moments of pain, and the small victories that had led her to this point. The applause that greeted her as she stepped onto the stage was a reminder of how far she had come. "Hello, everyone," Laura began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "My name is Laura, and I'm here to share my journey of resilience and hope." She took a deep breath, scanning the audience, and spotted familiar faces, her family, friends, and even Miguel, who had become an integral part of her life. Their presence gave her strength. "Just a few years ago, I was in a car accident that changed everything for me," she continued, allowing her thoughts to drift back to that fateful day. "I woke up in the hospital, paralyzed from the waist down. I thought my dreams were over." She paused, looking down for a moment to gather her emotions. But I was wrong. What I discovered was that true strength comes from resilience, from the ability to rise after a fall. The audience sat in rapt attention as she recounted the dark days of her recovery. "I remember the pain, the frustration, and the betrayal when I found out that the person I trusted the most had let me down when I needed him the most." A murmur of understanding rippled through the crowd. "But in that pain, I found a light, my family, my friends, and a newfound purpose." She spoke about her family's unwavering support. "My parents were my rock. They never let me feel sorry for myself. My mother would sit with me for hours during therapy, cheering me on, while my father constantly reminded me that the strength I needed was already within me." A smile spread across her face as she remembered their encouragement. "Their belief in me ignited a fire I didn't know I had." As she shared her experience in physical therapy, her passion grew. Every session was a battle, but each small victory felt monumental. "The first time I managed to stand up, I felt like I had conquered Mount Everest." The audience erupted in applause, and Laura beamed, feeling the energy of their support. And then there was Miguel. At the mention of his name, Laura's heart warmed. He was an ex-athlete, someone who had faced his own challenges, and he became my mentor. Miguel taught me that it's not just about the physical aspect of recovery. It's about the mental and emotional strength we cultivate along the way. She recalled their conversations, the laughter they shared, and the way he had pushed her to embrace her journey. Together, we established a support group at the rehabilitation center. We would sit in a circle, sharing our stories, our struggles, and our triumphs. Those moments were transformative. They reminded me that I wasn't alone, she explained, her voice filled with emotion. Each person there brought their own battles, and yet, we found solidarity in our vulnerability. As she continued, Laura felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. After months of hard work and determination, I decided to take my experience and turn it into something positive. I started volunteering at a community project that helps individuals with disabilities find employment. Her face lit up with excitement. It was incredible to see how much potential we all had, regardless of our circumstances. Laura remembered the first day she spoke at the project. I stood in front of a group of people who had faced their own challenges, and I realized that my pain could help others. I wanted to inspire them to embrace their journeys, just as I had learned to embrace mine. She felt a swell of pride at how far she had come. I started sharing my story, not just to inspire, but to connect. And you know what? The more I shared, the more I realized that we all have a story worth telling. Each of us has faced our own mountains, and sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is lift each other up. The audience responded with applause, a wave of encouragement that fueled her spirit. Speaking became my new passion. I wanted to reach as many people as possible to show them that they are not defined by their circumstances. They are defined by their strength, their courage, and their willingness to fight for a better tomorrow. She took a moment to look around the room, her eyes landing on Miguel, who smiled back at her with pride. In the past year, I've had the privilege of speaking at numerous events, sharing my journey, and meeting incredible people along the way. Each story I've heard has further solidified my belief that we are stronger together. Just then, a thought struck her. And you know what? Recovery doesn't end when the physical therapy sessions are over. It's a lifelong journey. There are still days when I struggle, moments of insecurity when I doubt myself. But I've learned to embrace those feelings, to recognize them as part of the process. She could feel the audience hanging onto her every word. And that's why I keep a journal. I write down my victories, my fears, and my dreams. It's a way for me to remind myself of how far I've come and to set new goals for the future. With a deep breath, she concluded, I stand here today not just as someone who has overcome physical challenges, but as a testament to the human spirit's resilience. Each one of you has the power to rewrite your story. No matter the obstacles you face, remember that you are not alone, and your journey matters. The auditorium erupted in applause, and Laura felt tears of joy prick at her eyes. She had done it. She had shared her truth, her journey, and her newfound purpose. As she stepped back from the microphone, she was enveloped by Miguel's warm embrace, and the love and support of her family surrounded her like a protective shield. Laura stood backstage, her heart racing as she prepared for the fundraising event that had become a cornerstone of her newfound purpose. The air was thick with anticipation, and the vibrant chatter of attendees filtered through the heavy curtains. She had spent months working tirelessly to organize this event, aiming to raise awareness and funds for her community project that supported individuals with disabilities. It was a cause that had become not just a mission for her, but a lifeline, a chance to transform her pain into something meaningful. As she glanced at her reflection in the mirror, she couldn't help but admire how far she had come. The once timid young woman, paralyzed by fear and uncertainty, now stood with her shoulders back, exuding confidence. Yet, a shadow loomed over her excitement. She had learned, shockingly, that the woman who had been seeing Alex while she was recovering was not only an attendee but also the new coordinator of the event. A mix of anger and anxiety bubbled within her, but she was determined not to let it overshadow the work she had put in. Are you ready for this? Miguel's voice broke through her thoughts, bringing her back to the present. He stood beside her, a reassuring presence, his own demeanor calm and encouraging. His support had been invaluable, transforming from a mentor to a cherished friend. I don't know, Laura admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. What if I can't handle seeing her? What if, Laura, Miguel interrupted gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. You've faced so much already. This is your moment to shine, to show everyone how strong you are. No one can take that away from you. And if things get too heated, just remember your strength. You're not alone in this. Taking a deep breath, Laura nodded, feeling a surge of determination. You're right. I can't let her ruin what this event means to me and to everyone else. As the doors opened and the crowd's energy spilled into the room, Laura stepped into the spotlight. The applause was overwhelming, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. She smiled, feeling the love and support emanating from her friends and family. As she took the stage, her eyes scanned the audience until they landed on Alex, standing awkwardly at the back. He looked different, guilt-ridden and unsure. For a fleeting moment, she felt the pang of old emotions, but she quickly shook them off. This wasn't about him. It was about her journey and the people she was now committed to helping. Thank you all for being here tonight, Laura began, her voice steady and clear. When I first embarked on this journey of recovery, I had no idea what lay ahead. I faced darkness, pain, and betrayal. But through it all, I found purpose. I found strength. And I realized that each of us has the power to turn our struggles into something beautiful. The crowd listened intently, captivated by her words. She felt empowered, the warmth of their encouragement fueling her passion. I want to share a story with you tonight, a story of resilience and hope. It's about a woman who, like many of us, faced challenges that seemed insurmountable. But instead of allowing those challenges to defeat her, she chose to rise. She chose to help others. As she spoke, she caught sight of the woman who had been the cause of her heartache, standing near the front with a clipboard, her expression unreadable. Laura's stomach twisted, but she pressed on. We all have our battles. Some are visible, while others remain hidden. But together, we can create a community that supports each other, that lifts each other up. Just as she was about to delve deeper into her message, she felt a sudden surge of emotions, and her gaze locked with that of the other woman. It was a silent challenge, a confrontation waiting to happen. Taking a deep breath, Laura concluded her speech, her heart pounding in her chest. "Thank you for listening. Let's work together to make a difference." As the audience erupted in applause, Laura stepped down from the stage, her heart racing not only from the adrenaline of speaking, but also from the impending confrontation. She felt Miguel's reassuring presence at her side, but the moment was inevitable. The woman, whose name she learned was Sarah, approached her. A friendly smile plastered on her face, but Laura could see the tension in her eyes. "Laura, right?" Sarah extended her hand, and Laura hesitated for a moment before shaking it. "That was a powerful speech. You really have an inspiring story." "Thank you," Laura replied, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "I appreciate that." "I know this might be a bit awkward," Sarah continued, her voice softening, "but I think we need to talk. About Alex." "What is there to talk about?" Laura's tone was sharper than she intended, but the hurt was still fresh. "He made his choices. Believe me, I know how it feels to be hurt," Sarah said, her expression shifting from friendly to earnest. "Alex lied to me too. When I found out about your accident, he painted a picture that made it seem like you were, well, gone. I thought I was stepping into a new relationship with him, not realizing he was still holding on to you." Laura's heart raced as she processed Sarah's words. "So you didn't know I was still alive? You didn't know I was fighting for my life?" "Not until it was too late," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "He didn't just betray you. He betrayed me as well. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could help him move on, but I was deceived just like you." For a moment, Laura stood in silence, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. She felt anger, sadness, and even a flicker of empathy toward this woman who had been caught in the same web of deception. "I don't want to be part of this anymore," Laura said finally, her voice steady but firm. "I'm working to build something positive, something that helps others. I won't let him define my journey." Sarah nodded, her expression softening. "I understand, but maybe we can turn this around? Instead of being rivals, we could be allies. We both have experiences that could help others. We could use our stories to empower those who are struggling." Laura paused, contemplating the offer. It was unexpected, but perhaps there was a chance to turn this pain into purpose. "You really think that could work?" she asked cautiously. "Absolutely," Sarah replied, her eyes brightening with enthusiasm. "We could create workshops, share our stories, and help people heal. We could show them they're not alone in their struggles." As Laura considered the proposal, she felt a shift within her, a sense of liberation. "You know what? I like that idea. It's time to turn this negativity into something good." The two women exchanged a smile, a mutual understanding dawning between them. The anger that had once clouded Laura's heart began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. They were both survivors, and together they could forge a new path. "Let's do this," Laura said, extending her hand once more. "Together, we can make a difference." As Sarah shook her hand, Laura felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had taken control of her narrative, refusing to allow Alex's actions to dictate her future. Instead, she chose to embrace this unexpected alliance and channel her experiences into something transformative. That night, as she left the event, Laura felt lighter, her heart filled with hope and determination. She had faced her past, confronted her pain, and emerged stronger than ever. With Sarah by her side and Miguel's unwavering support, Laura was ready to continue her journey, empowered by the knowledge that even in the face of betrayal, new beginnings could arise. Together, they would turn their stories of struggle into a beacon of hope for others, proving that resilience could indeed transform pain into purpose. We want to hear your opinion. Leave a comment below, share your impressions, and your own stories of resilience and hope. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next emotional videos. Join us on this journey and follow more incredible stories. See you next time.